Today we're going to be covering how you can learn SQL in 30 days or less. And I'm going to teach you how I learned SQL for Google BigQuery in 30 days of studying or less. So let's get started with this video now. Basically, the type of SQL that I had to learn was specifically unique because I had to do it for Google BigQuery, which is a type of cloud data warehouse that stores a bunch of data. And I had to do it to query Google Analytics data. And the thing with Google Analytics data is it's unique, it's different, it's nested in a certain way. And so some of the classic ways you would kind of query or use that data is different from standard SQL. So my task was a bit harder, but I had to get it done for my job. So how do you actually get started with this? I think the best way is with an online course of somehow. I think a course will basically teach you all these principles, and with some of these courses they actually even give you exercises where you can actually run the query yourself and see if it works or not. There's a couple places I recommend, but honestly there's so many good courses out there that you almost can't go wrong unless you just stumble across a really bad one out of bad luck. But there's a bunch on Udemy. Those are kind of more suited for like different types of SQL. I actually did buy a Udemy course for Microsoft, MySQL, and a lot of the principles still held, but there's some differences. And then obviously Code Academy is another big one that offers you like in real time how to practice and learn these things. And then the last one would be, of course, if you have a specific need, get a course in that need. So for me, that niche need was Google BigQuery SQL. So I bought a course specifically for that, which was by Simo Ahava. Now that last one tended to be the most impactful just for my needs, because not only did they teach a lot, but they had video tutorials, they had a whole data set that you could play with, that you could download and install into your BigQuery. And then on top of that, they even had full example SQL queries for every principle explained, so that you can actually use that as a template when trying to build and query certain things in the platform. And this tended to be very useful because I didn't have to start from scratch writing it. But I still had to do some work because these examples were basically, each one was for getting one specific metric out of the data warehouse. And sometimes you needed to get 7 metrics out in a specific way, spliced in a certain way by a certain dimension, or with other unique customizations. So even with the principles and the examples, you'd still have to learn enough of it yourself to be able to navigate and use this. Now the beauty of it is you don't have to become a SQL master. I definitely did not. I set my goal on becoming good enough to get the job done. And I knew that I probably wasn't, going to be talented enough or genius programmer to become an expert in this, but I was good enough to get the job done. So I really think that it's certainly an essential skill to learn. You may be like, well, maybe it's not necessary now with ChatGPT and AI. I really still think that you need at least beginner level, because for various reasons, some of the stuff that these AI apps spit out, when you run it, it doesn't work. It's certainly very helpful at times where you're able to get it to work when you write the right prompt. But if it doesn't work and you have no idea what the code is saying, then how are you going to debug it and then rewrite it so that it actually works or it doesn't break because of some oversight that the tool didn't mention? Will there come a point in the future where maybe it's flawless and it never breaks and you can just rely on the tool to write code for you? Maybe, but I don't think it's there yet, and it won't be anytime soon just because of what I've seen. It's certainly very helpful. It has helped me to an extent, but you got to learn this stuff. So I would say the first 7 days, it's really just focused on learning the fundamentals. And that's what I was focused on. Just learning these different principles, watching and rewatching the different videos, the modules, the explanations. I was not too embarrassed to the point where it was above me to rewatch a module, rewatch some videos, and get up to speed on it. And the secret truth is that you don't have to finish the course. A lot of the later advanced modules were stuff that I was never gonna use anyways. And just because you have the urge to be a completionist doesn't mean you have to follow through with it. I definitely have this urge a lot when I try and go through courses. I often complete every module because there's that completionist side of me in me, but I realized that there were modules that I could skip, or videos, or parts that weren't really relevant at all. I would never use it, and it was really hard to do so. But you have to be efficient, and it's okay to skip a module and not have that 100% complete thing done. Who really cares about that anyways? Even if you put that certification on LinkedIn, people they care more that you're proficient with SQL than you've completed every module in some obscure course they've never heard of. There's so many courses out there for SQL. So that was my focus for the first 7 days. I would say the next 7 days, it was still focused on principles, but then I started working on more complex principles, and then starting to fuse concepts. The way that the Google BigQuery module was set up, each lesson or video and tutorial was essentially focused on querying a different metric of some sort in Google Analytics BigQuery, while introducing a new principle or idea with how you write SQL programming languages. So because of that, I would watch the video, try and consume it, process it, and sometimes I would rewatch it. Sometimes I would actually take action on it. And I did jump around the course sometimes because since I was working, I did want to apply some of these concepts I learned to get the job done in a timely manner. Some of this professional development is going to have to happen outside of your work and school hours, because if you want to get ahead, you have to be able to stay motivated and learn this stuff on your own. And that's how I did it. And you don't have to spend crazy amounts of time. I would say 5 hours a week, which is like less than an hour a day if you do it on weekends too, is stupid easy. I mean, there's people in China who work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So for you to have an 8-hour a day job and then complain when you have weekends off, and you don't want to work, do a little bit extra on Prof Dev just for a month or two, that is not acceptable. And I think you have to have some motivation to do that, and I did, because this job is great. It gives you a lot of freedom, it pays well, and I think it's really good to get. If you look at the Glassdoor average salary range for this, it's anything from $70,000 to $110,000 per year. So you can really make a good living from this job, and I think that is a strong motivator. But whatever your motivator is, you need to use it to get there. Then it became about actually using these principles, and that's when I really started to have to piece together different principles I had to learn. Because if a client of mine at my agency job wants certain metrics and numbers, and then the principles only teach you how to get this independently of this, and then you have to fuse them together so that you can write a SQL query that pulls all of those at the same time. And there's different ways of writing each one, because some of the data is nested in different ways or needs to be calculated. That was by day 7 to day 14, that's really when you should start to be kind of applying your principles, maybe even mixing different principles you learn together. And I would say from 14 to day 21, so the third week of kind of learning this stuff, it's really where you can really start to succeed. So I would say you would probably want to spend an hour a day, and by day 15, you're probably going to be better off than most people with SQL. But it really has to come down to applying that knowledge. So that's kind of what I did. And by day 15 to 20, I was already able to basically fulfill like 85% of the requests. I got like 7 or 8 requests of like these very different charts that they wanted me to query. And so I was able to use the examples given and then write the rest of it, make it work, and then set that up in BigQuery so that it actually kind of pulled the numbers I wanted. So it worked really well. And then the last 15%, just by spending some more time really thinking it through, these were the more advanced queries. I made them work. And don't be afraid to ask your team members. Don't be afraid to ask peers. If you don't have team members, I did. But if you didn't, don't, see if you can message the instructor. Join an online forum that loves programming. Go to Reddit or Facebook groups or some forum and ask others. Don't work in a silo. Guys, remember that there's tons and tons of experts around the world, and maybe they're even on your team at the job you work for to get some bounce back. So I did get a bit of bounce back from my team members to get more feedback when I couldn't figure out a query. I also got that from a little bit from other forums and a little bit from the course instructor too. And long and short of it was I was able to complete 100% of the requests that the client wanted. In this case, the client wanted me to query and get various different metrics in certain ways so that I could, get that data ready. And then I could import that data into a data viz tool, in this case, Looker Studio, so that I could actually visualize all those charts, because we were storing all this big data in BigQuery from Google Analytics, but we wanted like certain things calculated in certain ways. And so that's essentially how I did it. And at the time, a lot of my team members were kind of in the same boat and starting out. So I couldn't really rely on them completely to get feedback or tips on how to write SQL. The ones who succeeded at their jobs, they didn't finish the Google BigQuery SQL course either, because they didn't have to. They realized they didn't have to. The course gets really in-depth from complete beginner to some very advanced queries. So some of the later modules, like modules 7 to 11, that like finished up the course, those were super advanced anyways, and we knew we wouldn't run into them. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to be a completionist. And that's essentially how I got it done. Now, I will have to admit it was kind of sporadic. So I didn't always do it one day after another in a row. So, in total, I probably, dabbled and learned and used this tool over, 30 days of time of prof dev. But that wasn't always one day after another. It was sometimes, one day and then 2 days off because I had to focus on other work and stuff, and then another day on. And then by the end of this time, I was successfully able to write the queries needed to satisfy various clients and start to debug and identify where things break and fix them whenever they do. It's constantly a learning process, because with big data and querying data analytics like this, it never ends. I still get requests. Like I got a recent one recently where essentially for whatever reason, the UTM data for UTM links is there in Google Analytics 4, but by the time it's brought over to BigQuery, it disappears partially. And I still can't figure out why. So there are some really tough questions and problems that require kind of a unique skill set of not just SQL, but like this whole Google ecosystem that helps you create this niche job that pays well and is really awesome to do, but also it keeps you on your toes. So I've not stopped learning SQL and I'm still learning it. And then in this example, I literally have to probably run various queries, and I already have, to kind of diagnose the problem and identify the cause, and sometimes make guesses or hypotheses on what is causing the issue because it's not apparent, and then go from there and get it done. So with all that being said, like, subscribe, and comment if you like this video. Hit that subscribe button below, and let me know what video you want me to cover next in the comments. And if you want some exclusive tips on how to get this job, if you even want some free coaching from me, I have a free email newsletter down below where I share exclusive tips on how to get this job. And I offer some free coaching sessions. No upsells, no selling of any sort. Just me hopping on a call and giving back. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.